right, good afternoon. About the next 6 minutes, we're going to cover about 88 slides, so buckle up in for the ride. So let's talk about the Wisconsin Manufacturers Report, some key things. Again, if you look at the timing of when we did this study, it was primarily in August of this past summer. We had 415 companies that were involved that we reached. Demographically, we reached all areas of the state. We touched on a nice cross-section of manufacturers, and also by size and vertical. This is our third annual survey, and we did follow up to explore some of the areas in depth with some in-person focus groups. So nothing methodology. Takeaways, and you'll see these flavors go through the slides that I'll go through. First of all, workforce, obviously still a top concern. Anybody who studies demographics, this isn't going away, okay? We have an 8 million person difference between the retiring generation and a generation replacing it. So this is going to be here for a while. Changing concerns, there are some reshufflings going on. You know, we heard a little bit muted response today regarding supply chain and what's going on with inflation. So again, there's been a little bit of a rebalancing. Companies are talking they're ready to grow. Optimism, it's there, but you're going to see it's tempered. And recognize again, as I spoke, and we just had kind of a snapshot of what's going on right now. This represents August data. In technology, again, recognition by manufacturers that automation in particular is very important. It interweaves with workforce, and there's some interesting trends going on as it relates to AI in cybersecurity. So as we talk about the business climate, you know, at the time was viewed things are going in the right direction, but we aren't quite back to where we were in 2021. You'll see here on the far right, in particular, blue is right direction, red is the wrong direction or track. But again, not back to where things were. We talk about the issues of what's going on from the perspective of companies, finding quality workforce. Guys, we've heard that today, haven't we? But also holding on to it. Also, inflation and rising costs are still there. What was real interesting about workforce is look at the dichotomy between small, mid-sized companies. So companies of 1 to 49 employees, 36%. Companies that are larger, 54%. That's significant. So it's a bigger issue as you get bigger. So when we talk about hiring, we were a little surprised to see this. Again, we see the majority of companies hiring. You see the 55% being the blue bar. But what we did see is the number of people they were looking for. 1 to 2 positions is typical. Okay, so it's the numbers aren't great, but as you all know, those are very critical positions often, and certainly our census of other marketplaces, there's a lot of companies that aren't looking because they haven't been successful to find them. Now, finding qualified workers, is it easy? Well, you know what? 81% say it's either difficult or somewhat difficult. And again, that compares very similar to what we saw in the prior 2 surveys. So again, as I talked about, we're talking about economic cycles today and business cycles, but we have this demographic cycle that's superimposed on it all, that's going to be going on for a number of years yet. Now, is it difficult to find workers? What's nice is we're seeing a slight decline in that. It's trending the right direction. And again, if you look at companies with 50 employees, it's gone from 68% down to 43%. Again, down is good. Companies, again, you'll see that 5 million or more, it's dropped from 65% down to 47%. So again, going in the right direction as far as difficulty to find. Now, how do companies counter long-term workforce? Well, it's still the traditional model, increasing wages and salaries, but also raising prices, because again, all of you know in this room that we've seen margins squeezed, we've seen supply chain issues, but we also see increasing prices, labor in particular, but obviously things associated with labor, okay? And again, you'll see if you look through this, again, where are companies, what are they doing to address the situation? Again, pretty traditional, but you'll see other things in there like employee training. And again, we heard a lot of those flavors from the panel that was just up here. Benefits, technologies, and automation. And I'll touch on the automation, how it ties in a little bit later. You also see flexibility as an important parameter. As far as what are the areas of increasing investment as companies look forward, you'll see 3 years worth of data. I'll focus here again, on your far right, you'll see growing revenue and profitability. Because again, we recognize we have to renew ourselves as it relates to longer term. Expanding sales within the U.S. came through very strongly. And maximizing productivity. Again, productivity, what does it do? Obviously, it gives us additional capacity for when we're busy, but also from the perspective, it allows us to do more with less and also drop more to the bottom line and help compensate for some of the cost increases. So those are the three areas that we see that are common themes. As far as automation, still very important. 64% say it's very important for the future. But we have obstacles. The most important obstacle we saw is budget and financing. That's becoming a greater obstacle than what we've seen traditionally. If we think about the economy with rising interest rates, we see about uncertainty, we see the squeeze that happens. To touch on two other areas quickly of technology, let's talk about AI. There's an interest in learning more about it. Companies are just starting to dabble because we really all don't know what it all means yet, but there's some interest there, obviously. Cybersecurity in cyber, 22% of companies have reported that they've been hacked or breached in some way. So if you're in the 78%, hopefully it stays 78%. But again, we see this as a long-term trend. As far as growth, investment, again, think about the future. Drivers of the future, finding new customers and markets, very key. That's the one. And then right behind that, increasing productivity, reducing waste, doing, again, more with less. But then you see, particularly from a competitive perspective, developing leaders and people, very, very important. Bottom line, manufacturers are less pessimistic, but again, recognizes August data, and I think we see a changing context potentially. They see confident about the future, but the metrics are turning down, particularly as it relates to financial metrics and bottom line. Concerns about inflation and supply chain have modified somewhat, but again, they're still there. Workforce obviously continues as a challenge. Automation is important, not just for cost, for opening capacity, but automation is also a great way to work in tandem with workforce to make your company a more attractive place to work. We see, again, hacks occurring in a quarter of companies, and again, AI is something we're all see a future for. So key takeaways, transformation's happening because of chronic workforce. Significant number of manufacturers have some level of duress. Again, the good news is if you look at the bottom footnote, we've seen that now for 3 years. But again, we take it very seriously. We want healthy manufacturers. I know you do all too. But we certainly see the squeeze that's happening. Workforce economics, again, and we heard it from our panelists, you get good people, you find a way to hold on to them. And that's very key. You'll see upskilling, how it fits in here, and we see a lot of work being done as it relates to both retention and again, how do we make it as a place to work from a destination perspective. So actions, again, embrace the workforce marketplace. The whole issue going on with workforce is here to stay in the near term. What do we do to increase our brands, our value proposition to make it even more compelling? Again, how do we create paths for people to grow and achieve their dreams at our sites? Leaning into technology, again, it helps differentiate the future. And obviously there's a lot of people, including us, who can help you on your journey. So with that, I want to say thank you. Everybody enjoy the break. Thank you, Dan.